National interest first, India pushes back on oil narrative amid US claim. India's energy diplomacy entered a sharper spotlight this week after Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri firmly asserted that New Delhi's oil import decisions are guided solely by national interest, countering claims by US President Donald Trump that India had agreed to halt further purchases of Russian crude. Speaking at a special media briefing in New Delhi during the visit of Seychelles President Patrick Herminie, Misri outlined India's strategic calculus on energy procurement, underscoring that affordability, availability, and supply security non geopolitical pressure remain the pillars of India's oil policy. Misri said that India import nearly 80 to 85% of its crude oil requirements, making inflationary risks from volatile energy prices a constant concern for policymakers. In such a scenario, he argued prioritizing domestic consumers is not optional but imperative. Global energy markets, he noted, have been battered by prolonged uncertainty since February 2022, when the Russia Ukraine war disrupted supply chains and drove prices sharply higher. Western efforts to curb Moscow's revenue, including the G7 imposed price cap on Russian oil, were aimed at balancing sanctions with global market stability. India, as both a major consumer and a stabilizing force in energy markets, had to respond pragmatically. That response involved scaling up discounted Russian oil purchases, which reached roughly $56 billion in 2024 to 25 financial year. According to Misri, this was less a political statement and more an economic necessity during a period of extreme volatility. Crucially, the Foreign Secretary rejected the idea that India is locked into any single supplier. He emphasized that India sources crude from dozens of countries and deliberately maintains a diversified import basket to prevent strategic vulnerability. Depending on objective market condition, sourcing may vary, Misri said, adding that flexibility and diversification are essential to long-term energy security. He made clear that while government policy sets the broad framework, the actual purchasing decisions are taken by public and private sector companies based on price, availability, and risk exposure and fiduciary responsibility. This distinction becomes especially relevant as US sanctions since October 2025 on Russian energy giants Rosneft and Lukoil have complicated procurement. India refiners have reduced direct exposure to these firms to avoid secondary sanction, even as limited volumes of Russian crude continue to reach Indian ports through alternative channels. Misri also signaled that India is keeping its option open beyond traditional suppliers. New Delhi is willing to explore renewed crude import negotiations with Venezuela, where Indian companies once had significant investments before US sanctions in 2018 and 19 and again in 2024 curtailed engagement.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.